Hello, my friends. Welcome to another video. If you are new here, my name is Chris and I like structure. I am a very process-oriented person. I like having lists and data and doing planning and having a method to my madness, so to speak. And I have been struggling for the last few weeks when it comes to what I want my inventory process to be. Up until my last market in November of 2025, I was logging and tagging everything that I made on a weekly basis. I was figuring that I wanted to stay ahead of it because I knew I would get major anxiety if I waited until right before a market to put everything into inventory, take stock of what I had, and tag everything. So it was something that I thought was going to be helpful to me, but I started to realize as time went on that it's a little more time consuming than it needs to be because of little setup tasks that have to happen every week. I hadn't tagged or inventoried things since that market, so I had almost about 2 months worth of stuff piling up and it was driving me absolutely insane. So I decided to go ahead and try out an approach that I'm thinking about using, and I'm thinking about doing it on a monthly basis. This morning, I went through my new process, fine-tuning and figuring out how I wanted things to go, so I thought I would share that with you today. I think I've shared before that I use Notion to kind of keep track of things. I'm going to be making some changes to that, but one thing I'm going to continue to do is keep like my inventory specs is what I'm calling it. And basically what that is if I already have something I've made before and I'm making some more, like when I did the rats, I'll go in there and peek and see what eye size I used, what yarn I used, the pattern if I wasn't sure if I had two different kinds. And that's just kind of my way of keeping track of that so that if I want to make the same thing again later, I have the information and I don't have to go searching around. I can grab everything and be ready to crochet. One thing I added for this new process is a little status. Since I was logging every single detail every week before, I didn't have to kind of keep track of that. If it was in there, everything was done. But now what I'm doing is I'm putting a little status in there that says I need to add it to Square or update Square if it's something I've made before. I'm also no longer having Notion generate my SKU number because I realized it was pretty time consuming to key that into Square every time, and Square does that for free. So I'm just going to let Square generate my SKUs from now on. To the left of my yarn wall, I keep a basket on top of my large Hulkin, and I'll place my makes in there as I finish them. And then when I'm getting ready to film a video, I just grab the basket, put it on the little table that I have, and that way I can share my makes easily with you. After I film, I've been placing the makes in one of 2 totes that I keep on the other side of the room. The plan is that on the first Saturday of each month, I'll grab those plushies out and then I'll weigh each plushie for a price calculation. And if I list it on Etsy, that'll give me some shipping estimates. What I do if there's more than one make is I take the weight of the highest one, and then I'll always round up to like the nearest 5 grams or so. As you can see, I'm using my tool area. This is that area that I slated for kind of my packaging. And I have a little scale on there. So just sat down, took the measurements and entered them into Notion. I'm going to be keeping all of my actual inventory counts of items in Square. I really like the way that it works. It keeps track when I sell something at market. I mark it off if I sell it on Etsy, and that keeps me from having to have it in 2 different places. I was keeping it in Notion as well, but I find that I don't really need to do that anymore. It's just as quick to pull up Square as it is to pull up Notion. After that, I headed over to my main computer. I could have done it on the laptop too, but I went ahead and entered all of the official inventory counts and everything in Square. I then generate barcodes for any new items, and I use Canva to create the label that's going to be printed and put on my tag. If it's an item I've sold before, I just grab the label that I have already in Canva and paste it into the little print file. I'll duplicate any that I need for counts of more than one, and then I'll add in any of those new barcodes that I generated so that I now have everything ready to go ahead and get printed. I then pull out and load my Munbin printer with the SKU labels that I use. I use Canva on my phone since it's already attached to the Munbin app. I then download the Canva file as a print PDF, and when you do that, it'll ask you how you want to open it. I just select Munbin and then I make sure that the labels are all there and I enter the label size. In this case, I'm using like a 1.5 by 1. And then I go ahead and print out all of the labels I need for all of my makes. I then sat and watched YouTube while I stuck all of the stickers on my tags, and then I went ahead and threaded the strings that I use onto each tag, and then I put them in piles for ease of tagging the items. I take my items to markets in these little duffel type bags, so I decided to just cop a squat on the floor and go ahead and start tagging and putting the items in those bags. Of course, sitting on the floor meant that Goose needed to help. Luckily, he got pretty bored, which I expected, so he decided to scurry off and I was able to proceed without having to work around him. I try to put tags around the neck or an area where I can loop it where it won't just come off. But in a case where I don't really have any place like that on a plushie, I will go ahead and use a small crochet hook to just loop through a stitch and pull the tag through. It went pretty quickly considering I had the 2 months and change worth of makes, but I got them all tagged and put into the bag. I zipped it up and will store it in another room until my first market. The challenge that I'm still currently facing is what to do about Etsy. I mentioned this in my last video. I was hoping to kind of come up with some sort of checklist that I could say, okay, if it meets this criteria, then it's an Etsy listing. But I really struggled with that, even when I was going through the makes today, just trying to figure out. And I don't know if it's one of those things where I just don't want to part with it because I like selling in person better. In person, you don't have to worry. The person's there, they're looking at it, they've touched it, they want it, they buy it. When you sell it on Etsy, there's always that fear that they're going to get it and be like, I thought it was bigger, or I thought the color looked different, or I don't know. I have these like paranoias. So I was trying to think of a way to make it where it's logical. All feelings and thoughts are aside. If it hits this criteria, it goes on Etsy. And listing things on Etsy is a lot of extra work. If it is something I am going to list on Etsy, then I've got to create the descriptions, I've got to create the title, I've got to go ahead and do the listing, make sure that I have a good weight for the item that includes the packaging so that if that's in there and Etsy's calculating off of it, the shipping's not going to be wrong. So, part of me is like, I don't want to list certain things, but I also know I do want to list things. So I'm struggling. If you have any ideas, let me know in the comments because I'm really torn on what my methodology should be for that. I was originally thinking maybe like at a price point, if it's $30 or more, put it on Etsy. I don't know. I was even kind of thinking of maybe doing something where I identify my staple market inventory. So if these are the items that I know I always want to take to market and it's not one of those items, then list it on Etsy because it doesn't have to be in the market list. I don't know. I'm I'm really struggling. And I think part of it is just analysis paralysis as well as like just being a little lazy because I don't want to do all the listing stuff. I don't know. I'm going to think on it. In the meantime, I have my little basket here to show you this week's makes. This week, I had the honor of pattern testing for Amanda at Eclectic Scribbles. I've linked her channel down below as well as this pattern because I really, really recommend this pattern. It's really quick to make and I really, really love it. It is called her Monster Friend and this is the first one that I made. I did this with Naughty Pony and my little Amazon yarn. Made him some hand-painted eyes. And she's got a bunch of different options in there. You can do the mouth in all kinds of different ways that you want to. A few folks did like a tongue, teeth sticking out. I mean, you can do all kinds of things. Whenever I do a pattern test, I try to make the first one like strictly what the front of it looks like. Although hers is embellished to the nines, and he is not. So, but this is the first one that I made. When I was done with him, my son, who is 19, saw him and he was like, I really love that. And I said, really? I'm like, well, you can have it because he has never really asked me for anything I've ever made or anything like that. And he was like, really? Don't you want to sell it? I said, well, of course I want to sell it. But if you want it, you can have it. And he goes, oh, I would love to. And I said, do you want to pick a color and I'll make you one? And he was like, could I? So he came over to the wall and was picking colors. He also picked eyes. So here is the one that I made for him. He wanted to have the exact same mouth and everything. So this is his little guy. And these eyes are from Christine at What's Up Cupcake. These were part of the Wicked collection. So I did get her entire Wicked collection and I love them. Oh, and by the by, these two were both made with a 5.5mm hook. This is Parfait Chunky. He's slightly smaller than the Naughty Pony guy, but they're roughly about 7 inches tall. And then this guy, because I like making things in threes, I made him with Bernat, but gave him some hand-painted eyes. And these guys are so, so cute. I just really love this pattern and it's so quick. The arms are sewn on. If you wanted to, you could probably crochet these in, but I like placing them afterwards. But yeah, and you just do the traditional kind of joining of the feet, work your way up. But the way she closes it and everything, it's unique. It's awesome. This is a really awesome pattern. I want to make one more, and I was telling Amanda in the chat that I wanted to do like a one eye, one horn flying purple people eater. So I might work on that next week, but I'm going to be doing some traveling for work and I haven't done that in a long time. So I got to do some shopping and a bunch of other things to get ready for that. So we'll see what I get around to. My plan is to sit down and see if I can finalize what I want to do for my markets this year, because we are already approaching February and I still have not figured that out yet. So I'm hoping to sit down and do that, and I will share that with you as soon as possible. That is all I have for you today. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.